Hey there, DIY enthusiasts. Welcome. Today, we're demystifying exactly how to build a garden pond, breaking the whole process down into a completely actionable, mistake-proof explainer. You know, a water feature can literally transform your backyard into this amazing personal sanctuary. But let's be real, constructing one from scratch, it can feel pretty daunting. I mean, where do you even start digging? And how do you keep the water from turning into a murky, mosquito-filled swamp? Well, stick with me. By the end of this, you're going to have the exact blueprint to confidently construct a thriving, crystal clear aquatic ecosystem.
All right, here's our step-by-step roadmap. First, we'll tackle planning your backyard oasis. Then we'll get into sizing and sourcing the right materials. After that, we go over the actual excavation and installation steps, followed by how to create a balanced biological ecosystem. And finally, we'll lock down essential pond maintenance. Let's dive in. Section 1, planning your backyard oasis, specifically perfect placement and microclimates. Look, before you even think about picking up a shovel, we have to tackle the topography and the microclimate of your yard. Honestly, skipping this step just leads to massive headaches down the road. You aren't just digging a hole, you are integrating a complex hydroengineering project into your landscape. Now, what's really fascinating here is how exactly your placement dictates the biological future of your pond. First up, sunlight. You need at least a few hours of optimal sunlight every single day. Why? Because that fuels plant photosynthesis, which is absolutely critical for oxygenating the water. But, and this is a big but, you absolutely must avoid placing your pond directly under wide canopy deciduous trees. Seriously, don't do it. When autumn hits, all those dropping leaves sink to the bottom, decay, and completely overload the water with organic nitrogen and phosphorus. It's basically a recipe for massive green algae blooms. Plus, aggressive tree roots can easily puncture your liner over time. Oh, and one more thing. The ground has to be completely level. Literally perfectly level. Even the slightest slope will compromise your water line, and trust me, you'll be left staring at this ugly strip of exposed black rubber on one side. Nobody wants that. Moving right along to Section 2, sizing and sourcing materials, the true foundation of your water feature. This phase is where your foundation is actually built, starting with the exact material that will physically hold all that water in place. So let's compare our two main options here, because choosing the wrong liner is literally the #1 reason DIY ponds fail in their first 5 years. Okay, first up, pre-formed plastic molds. If you just want a small, quick setup, these are great. They're fast to install, they usually hold between 0.5 to 3 cubic meters of water, and they even come with built-in planting terraces. But they strictly limit your design, and they are highly prone to cracking if the soil underneath happens to freeze or shift. On the flip side, if you're going for a deep, customized, really professional-looking pond, a flexible EPDM rubber liner is absolutely your best bet. It allows for practically unlimited volume, it's super elastic so it handles freezing beautifully, and it can easily last over 20 years. The catch? Well, you have to be incredibly precise when laying down your protective underlayment to prevent any rock punctures. And to get that liner right, you'll use the pond liner formula. This is the exact math you need to calculate your flexible liner dimensions before you head to the store. Basically, you take the maximum width of your pond, and you add the maximum depth multiplied by 2, because remember, the liner has to go all the way down to the bottom and then all the way back up. Then you add an overhang on both sides. Ensuring you factor in that depth twice and leave a critical 30 to 60 centimeters of overhang is totally non-negotiable. That overhang is what you're going to use to securely anchor the liner into the surrounding bank with rocks and soil. If you skip it, the liner will just slip right underwater the second you fill it up. Okay, Section 3, excavation and installation steps, digging your oasis. We've ordered our materials, we've measured the yard, so now it is time for the heavy lifting. And doing these physical steps sequentially is absolutely critical for maintaining the pond's structural integrity. All right, here is your sequence of attack. Step 1, digging and precision leveling. You actually want to dig in terraces, think of them like wide stairs, to create planting zones at different depths. Step 2 is your underlayment. And hey, here's a fantastic cost-saving pro tip for you. Use free old synthetic carpets over a layer of sand. Yeah, you heard me right, carpets. They are so much thicker than commercial geotextile underlayment, and they protect that rubber liner flawlessly from sharp roots and rocks. Step 3, lay your flexible liner. But, and listen closely here, you must leave some slack. Never ever pull it tight. The immense weight of the water will stretch and tear a taut liner in no time. Just let the water naturally push it into the corners. Finally, step 4 is edging and anchoring everything down. Now, take a look at the numbers on this table.
The crucial point here is using this exact breakdown to calculate the massive weight of river rocks you're going to need to buy to properly pack those terraces and hide that ugly black liner edge we talked about. Get this, if you're using 6 to 10 centimeter river rocks to hold down your liner, you're going to need between 120 to 130 kilograms of rock for just one single square meter. Wow, yeah, this is heavy, back-breaking work for sure. But carefully packing these stones is exactly what mechanically locks your liner in place and transforms what is essentially a plastic hole into a gorgeous, natural-looking alpine stream. Section 4. Creating a balanced ecosystem, from construction to biology. This is where things get really cool. We're transitioning from heavy construction to biology, basically transforming your hole in the ground into a living, breathing purification facility. The goal is an ecosystem that naturally fights off algae without harsh chemicals.
So let's talk about depth, specifically that 1.8 to 2.0 meter mark. Now, 60 centimeters is perfectly fine for basic plants or maybe some really small fish if you live in a warm climate. But 1.8 to 2.0 meters, that is the magical depth required if you want koi fish to safely hibernate beneath the winter freeze line. At that depth, the bottom of the pond maintains a stable, much warmer temperature. It creates this cozy little winter cave where your fish can safely go dormant, even while the surface above is completely frozen solid. Nature is amazing, right?
Which brings us to probably the most common beginner mistake, the fish. Overcrowding is the #1 cause of toxic ammonia spikes. Remember, fish produce waste, and in a closed system, that waste quickly turns into toxic ammonia and nitrites. So how do you actually know your pond's absolute maximum biological capacity before you accidentally crash the whole system? You use the biological stocking rule. Basically, you need exactly 0.1 square meters of water surface area for every 2.5 centimeters of fish body length. You really need to calculate this surface area to length ratio strictly before you go out buying your fish. And keep in mind, massive species like koi carps demand even more space than this standard formula allows, simply because they grow incredibly fast and produce a tremendous amount of biological waste. A good rule of thumb? Start with just a few fish. Let the beneficial bacteria in your pond establish over a few months, and then you can slowly add more.
But fish are only half the biological equation, right? The other half is your plants. By planting evergreen species like Ophiopogon in a shallow, sandy beach zone, you're creating a natural filter. These are heavy feeding plants, and they act like a living purification plant, absorbing toxic heavy metals, nitrogen, and phosphorus right out of the water. Plus, designing a shallow beach zone provides this incredibly safe, accessible drinking spot. Local wildlife like birds and frogs can come hydrate or easily escape if they happen to fall in without drowning in deep, steep water.
All right, Section 5, Essential Pond Maintenance, Keeping the Ecosystem Thriving. We're in the final stretch now. This section covers the ongoing everyday reality of pond ownership and the hardware you'll need to keep your water crystal clear all year round. While a balanced ecosystem definitely does a lot of the heavy lifting, it still needs your help to truly thrive. To maintain perfect clarity, you've got to size your water pump to cycle the entire volume of your pond every 1 to 2 hours, pulling waste into the filters before it has a chance to rot. In the autumn, throwing a net over the surface is absolutely mandatory. It stops toxic leaf decay and protects your hibernating fish from hungry cats. Then, once a year, you'll want to vacuum out the sludge that settles at the deepest point. And finally, unless you're running a specialized winter heater, you must remove and completely dry your pumps before the hard freeze hits. Otherwise, you're going to end up with cracked motors. Okay, quick pause for a very important disclaimer. Before you fire up that excavator and start completely tearing up your lawn, please remember this. Always verify your local digging regulations and consult your utility companies. Seriously, hitting a buried gas or power line is catastrophic. Take the extra time to make those calls and definitely consider having a quick chat with a local landscaping or hydroengineering expert. That way you can build your beautiful oasis safely and completely legally. As the quote goes, your garden pond is not just a landscaping feature, it is a self-sustaining habitat that you have brought to life. Building a pond is a true hero's journey of DIY. Think about it. You start with a plain patch of grass, you put in the grueling work of excavation, you carefully piece together all the hydroengineering, and ultimately you step back and watch nature actually move in. It is incredibly rewarding. So armed with these steps, the mathematical formulas, and the biological rules, what kind of ecosystem are you going to bring to life in your backyard?